BYD has just overtaken Tesla in Europe, and the numbers show this is a very big change from last year. In July, Tesla sales across the European Union and the UK and EFTA dropped by 40%, while BYD's sales more than tripled. And here's the big bit: BYD's European market share is now 50% larger than Tesla's officially. So let's jump into it. Hello folks, my name is Ben Alexander. Thank you very much for tuning in. I really appreciate your time. Thank you to these people as well. These are the channel members and all the members on Patreon as well. So thank you very much for supporting my work. So what's happening here? A year ago, Tesla was comfortably ahead in Europe. In July 2024, Tesla sold about 14,800 cars across the continent in Europe. Fast forward to July 2025 and they only managed 8,800 vehicles, and that is about a 40% drop in a single year. So Tesla's European market share is now down to about 0.8%, which is extraordinary. Meanwhile, BYD is moving in the exact opposite direction. Back in July 2024, they sold 4,100 cars in Europe, or vehicles I should say. They registered 13,500 in this year, so that's more than tripling the sales in 12 months, pushing their share up to 1.2%. And when you compare the two of them side by side, BYD's share is now 50% larger for the European market than Tesla's, which is a very big deal. That is a big psychological milestone, because even if the raw numbers look small, it signals a very clear change in who is actually winning, who is losing, and the direction things are heading. I'm sure a lot of people will have stuff to say about this. You're very welcome to put your thoughts in the comments. The first big point is Tesla's lineup in Europe. It's simply too narrow. It's not a very good lineup, to be honest. They make some brilliant cars and they've only improved them over the years, and they are now phenomenally good. But it's still a very small offering from a single brand, really. Europeans have always loved small cars, affordable hatchbacks like the Renault Clio, Fiat Punto, Ford Fiesta, Volkswagen Golf. That is what people have typically liked to buy in huge numbers in the European Union, or in Europe, I should say, so not necessarily in the European Union. But Tesla doesn't sell anything like that at all. The smallest they've got is the Model 3, which is still, 40,000 euros, and it's a sedan. So the Model Y is obviously a mid-sized SUV, often more expensive again, obviously. So those models have sold quite well, obviously, especially in Norway. They've done very, very well in Europe. Norway's only 5 million people, by the way. Europe is 730 million people. So Norway is not the picture. They just get a big light shone on them because it's there's a lot of electric vehicles there. But when the market starts demanding cheaper EVs, Tesla just doesn't have anything to offer. And this is why BYD, on the other hand, is flooding the European market now with choice. The Dolphin and the Seagull and the Atto 3 and the Seal, they have a lot of cars on offer. The Seagull is a particularly important car. It's a proper small hatchback. It starts under 20,000 euros in some European markets. There are incentives, for example. That is half of the price of a Model 3. And it's not just cheap, it's also very usable. It's got 2.5 to 300 kilometers on the cheap one, and you can have more if you get the more expensive spec. And, you've got fast charging, and it fits very well into European cities, some of the older ones as well, where you have very tight, narrow roads. It's very, very good for that, tight parking spaces and things like that. If you're in France, you'll know what I mean, for example, or Amsterdam. That's the kind of package that I think makes sense to people living in Barcelona, Milan, Paris, for example. Second point I'd like to make here is BYD is building momentum very, very quickly. Their sales didn't just edge ahead, they surged 225% year on year. So that's the kind of growth you only get really when a brand is really hitting a kind of sweet spot. They are getting the right products in the right market at the right time. So Tesla have already done that 6 or 7 years ago. They did really, really well with the Model Y, Model 3. Tesla, in contrast, is falling away even while the overall EV market is in Europe is expanding. And the raw numbers tell the story, really. So there's no other way to really dress this, I don't think. You can't really put tinsel on this. In July alone, BYD sold 4,500 vehicles, 4,700 vehicles to be precise. more vehicles than Tesla. So that's not exactly a rounding error. That's, it's thousands of vehicles in a few weeks. So if the trend continues across the rest of the year, BYD could really end up outselling Tesla by tens of thousands of units in Europe. And it's not just one or two countries as well. EV demand in Europe is still growing quickly. In the first 7 months of 2025, more than 1 million new electric vehicles were actually registered across the European Union, UK and EFTA. That is 15.6% of all new cars sold in that area, with 7,500 million people. France was up 30.5% year on year for registering electric vehicles. Spain was up 30.2%. Germany was up 10.7% because they were already doing quite well in the last couple of years anyway. And Italy was up 9.4%. That shows EV demand is still on the rise, obviously. And so that's kind of why we know that it's not so good when Tesla are dropping. They're selling less vehicles. It's not like the whole market is shrinking or even stagnating and Tesla is just going down with it. The market really is growing, but Tesla is shrinking inside that market. So that is an important distinction to make here. Where will this all go? That's the big question. We're all wondering about what will be happening in the next 10 years. The third point, this comes down to positioning. So BYD has done really, really well. They've spent the last couple of years setting up the infrastructure. They've got the shipping lines, they've got the ships, and the pricing strategy to capture this next wave over the next 2 or 3 years. They've got multiple models that qualify for incentives. They've got a lot of choice that fits a lot of the segments in our markets that we really do like to buy. They've got new local factories opening in Hungary, in Turkey. They're building brand presence really, really, really quickly. Tesla has still, very strong brand recognition, but they don't have the product range to capture that middle market or the lower end of the market where the bulk of sales actually are. So that is the main difference between Tesla and BYD at the minute. No, it's nothing to do with how good or bad Teslas are, because they are actually very, very good. But also BYDs are, and Volkswagens are very good too. Lots of other brands are very, very good. And all these cars have come to market in the last couple of years with a very, very compelling offering. And here is where it gets very interesting. Tesla has been relying really heavily on the Model Y in Europe for a few years. But the demand is softening, obviously. It's tried and tested. We know it's good. I think maybe people are getting a bit curious to try something else now. Even recently, the Highland update to the Model 3 hasn't been enough to really turn the tide, obviously. They've not sold as many as they had hoped. People who want a €45,000 sedan already bought one in the last 5 years for a bit less money than that, actually. So what is selling now is the 20 or 30,000 euro vehicle in Europe, and that's BYD's backyard. That's their party trick, isn't it? This matters more than just 1 month of sales. Obviously, it points to a structural shift. A year ago, Tesla was more than 3 times bigger than BYD in Europe. Now BYD is ahead. That is a huge swing in just 12 months. And if BYD keeps pushing cheap, efficient EVs while Tesla, is waiting maybe for 2026, 2027 maybe, to bring their smaller Model 2 to market, this gap could actually widen even further. I suspect it probably will. There is no real clue as to when this new Model 2 will come to market, but it seems like the robotaxi is consuming their time and efforts and their money. I think it's coming first on the priority list. However, Musk did recently say something to the contrary, suggesting that the Model 2 or some sort of vehicle like the Model 2 is going to come to market at some point in some form. That's a paraphrase. It also ties into global strategy as well. Tesla has focused really heavily on the US, China, but in Europe, it lost momentum. They haven't done so well in the last year. BYD, meanwhile, is treating Europe like a major growth market. And obviously it is, because they know they're probably not going to do very well in America. Obviously, Americans don't really get to buy BYDs. 1.5 billion people in China, 750 million in Europe, for example. It's a massive, massive market. So this is exactly how Japanese brands beat American brands in the 70s. So many people comment on this, and it's actually kind of interesting to just read, just re-talk about this a little bit. When Toyota came to the market, some of you are old enough to know that period of time in the 70s and 80s. This is exactly how the Japanese brands beat American brands, obviously in the 70s and 80s then. Smaller, cheaper, they were more practical, they were more reliable. Cars that fitted the market better in America. History might kind of be repeating itself here. I suspect it probably is. And I think I've seen a couple of people say this in the comments. I wonder if anybody has cottoned onto this yet, because this is a part of my job to understand our modern history in this context. This is why I focus a lot on, what trends have already happened in the last 50 years, 100 years. I also just ran this poll, and I think about 90-something% of people, depending on the hour that I screenshot this and put it up for you, agree Musk has damaged the reputation of Tesla to some degree or another. I didn't want to get too specific. It was a simple yes or no. Tesla's sales are definitely down 40% year on year. BYD's sales are definitely up 225% year on year. The European EV market itself is still strongly growing. This isn't about, demand collapsing. It's about who's actually meeting that demand, and right now it is definitely BYD. It's their time to shine with all their cheap cars. Also, Volkswagen are selling cars in big numbers now, and they were a bit late to the party really, but they make some brilliant cars, and they were a bit late to the party really, and this makes a big dent in Tesla's numbers when we're talking about their market share in the European Union. And Europeans love Volkswagens. They really, really do. All over Europe, you'll see Volkswagens from the 90s and the noughties for, all over the place, basically. They are beautiful to drive, and they are pretty nice to look at, so it kind of makes sense, really. What do you think? Is this the start of BYD literally doing what Toyota have done, and they're dominating the European Union electric vehicle space? Or in the same way that they did in China, for example? Or do you think Tesla can actually bounce back to some degree, or even just, regain that title as the top manufacturer really for electric vehicles in Europe? Please let us know in the comments. Any thoughts you've got, that is okay. Anything at all you can put in the comments. Really sorry to those people that have had their comments held recently. I very rarely check the held comment section. YouTube holds a lot of comments that are completely not even that bad at all. And so I found out the other day, so many comments by so many people. I've just released all those comments. So apologies in the last couple of weeks, for example, if you commented something and it just didn't get posted. Thank you for watching. My name is Ben Alexander, and I will see you in the next video.